O'Reilly here. Anybody with us?
Hello?
Hello, who's that?
This is Bob Ashburn.
Hey, Bob. Brian O'Reilly.
Hey, Brian. How's your day?
How are? Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. How about yours?
Well, so far so good, actually. It's been kind of nice.
Good. Yeah, it's 65 here in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's in the 70s here.
Nice.
It actually feels a little warmer than that, actually.
I agree. Here it's the same thing. They're talking we might have thunderstorms.
Yeah. Sunday I'm headed to the mountains.
Oh, nice. Anybody else on with us?
Jim Rossi, Doug Counts.
Hey, Jim.
Okay, we got Brian O'Reilly, and who else?
Bob Ashburn.
Bob Ashburn. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Brandon. I just logged on as well.
All right, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
Welcome.
Randy Carlisle.
Hey, Randy.
Hey, how are you?
Good. This is Brian. Welcome aboard. We only have one other board member so far, so we're waiting a couple minutes.
Okay. What is the mute on a landline? I'm usually on my iPhone. I got a mute. What is it? *7? *6?
*6.
*6.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You up this way, Randy, or are you down south?
We're actually in Blue Ridge right now. I had some work that I had to have done on my cabin, and nobody wants to work on Saturday and Sunday, so I had to come up here today to get had a gas line leak.
Oh, crap.
So, yeah, we found it, or they found it. So anyway, got that taken care of. Had a brick mason here. We're looking at a fireplace. So yeah, we had a couple things we had to come on up to take care of.
I went to Blue Ridge about a month ago for the first time ever, and we've been here 28 years. And what a neat little town.
Yeah, it is. It's really hopping on the weekends.
Yep, it was. And I picked the worst day to go up. It was like the height of color, and it was like apple cider season. I don't know. There's some big apple orchard right outside of town that I had to go by it to get to my buddy's cabin, and it was like the president was there. There were so many cars or something.
You must be talking about Merciers.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, our cabin. You go about a mile and a half or 2 miles past there and turn off to the left. We're down on Fighting Town Creek. So.
Okay, he's right in that area. I think he's maybe 10 minutes from there, if I remember correctly.
Wow, might be a neighbor.
There you go. He's on a stream, got a nice little cabin, had it for a couple years, and he'd been trying to get me up there, and our wives were both out of town, so I made the mistake of leaving at noon, and it took me, what should be an hour and a half, took 2.5 hours to get there.
Oh, yeah, 5:15's a nightmare on Saturdays, especially during apple, but it's not as bad outside apple season, but it's still a lot of traffic up through here. I don't know why it's so crazy.
Anybody else join the meeting?
Lunsford's here.
Oh, good. So we have a quorum. I know George wasn't going to make it. Bill, you on? Well, we can go ahead and get started, right? Jim, 3's a quorum, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Today's meeting is a meeting of the Board of Directors. Owners and directors will be given an opportunity to speak on each motion. Owners may speak once on each motion, not to exceed 3 minutes. Directors have no such restrictions. Owners, when speaking, please identify yourself by name and unit number. Directors, when speaking, please identify yourself by name. There should be no cross-discussion with other owners, Board of Directors, or other attendees. Since this is a Board of Directors meeting, only a director may make and second a motion. Owners may not participate in any discussions after owner discussions are concluded and closed by the chair. Mr. Douglas Counts will assist the chair with the meeting and act as Sergeant at Arms. If an owner is on the call, please identify yourself by name and unit number. We have the owners. The Oceanville Directors Board of meeting December 11, 2015 will come to order at 2:35 Eastern Time. Will the Sergeant at Arms call the names of the directors to establish a quorum?
Thank you, Chair. Please answer present when your name is called. Mr. Ashburn?
Present.
Mr. Drinkwater, have you joined us? Mr. Karinsky is not going to be here. Mr. Lunsford?
Present.
And Mr. O'Reilly?
Present. 3 directors are present, thus a quorum is established. Will the Sergeant at Arms please certify the board meeting was properly noticed?
Notice with no less than a 48 hours written notice posted as required by Florida Statute 718 and the bylaws of Ocean Villa Condominium Association, Inc.
Thank you, sir. First item of business is to approve the minutes of the December 1st, 2015 Board of Directors meeting. The minutes of the December 1st, 2015 Board of Directors meeting were distributed by email to all directors prior to today's meeting. If all the directors have read the minutes, the reading of the minutes will be waived, and if not, the Sergeant at Arms will read the minutes. Have all the directors read the minutes of the December 1st, 2015 meeting? O'Reilly has.
Ashford has.
Lunsford has.
Are there any corrections to the minutes as distributed? There being no corrections and without objection, the minutes of the December 1, 2015 Board of Directors meeting are approved as distributed. There is no unfinished business. We have new business, and we have one item, and it's a workshop for the 2016 proposed budget. On December 1st, 2015, the board voted 5-0 to approve the Board of Directors set Wednesday, December 16, 2015 at 4 p.m. Central Time at the Oceanville Association office as the date, time, and place for the board to meet to adopt a budget for 2016, and that the 2016 proposed budget emailed to each director for that meeting be mailed to each owner at least 14 days prior to the meeting, and 2016 proposed budget email to the directors of that meeting be used as the baseline budget that the board will either adopt or amend after meeting as many times as necessary between December 1st, 2015 and December 16th, 2015 for the directors to scrutinize each line item expense before adopting the 2016 budget on December 16, 2015. The association mailed each owner the meeting notice and the agenda for the December 16, 2015 board meeting to adopt the 2016 budget along with a copy of the proposed 2016 proposed budget that was distributed to all directors at the December 1st, 2015 board meeting per the resolution passed at the December 1st, 2015 board meeting. December 1, 2015 board meeting, board member George Karinsky sent in an email with his thoughts on the 2016 proposed budget, which provoked some emails from the other board members, which eventually led the manager, Jim Rossi, to place the 2015 actual expenses on a spreadsheet and to examine each line item of expense before transferring it to a 2016 budget line item of expense. When the manager finished, the treasurer, Brian Lunsford, reviewed the work in detail and made final revisions to the 2016 proposed budget, which resulted in a decrease to the proposed monthly assessment from $515 per month to $486 per month. Today is the third working meeting of the Board of Directors, and it is being called so Treasurer Mr. Lunsford, with the assistance of the manager, Mr. Rossi, can explain the changes made to the 2016 proposed budget mailed to the owners after December 1st, 2015 board meeting. The meeting is an open forum, but please wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking. If you're an owner, please identify yourself by name and unit number, and if you're a director or manager, please identify yourself by name. Mr. Lunsford, you have the floor.
Mr. Early, I've got one question before I start. Are you the guy that reads the little lines after the car commercials on the radio?
I'm a paid-for non-attorney spokesman, not compensated.
Yeah, that guy. Are you that guy?
No.
Okay. So, as you mentioned in your opening statement, at the beginning of December, we sent out the 14-day notice for the budget adoption, and that was in accordance with Florida law. But we also decided to include that copy of a draft budget with that notice, and that was something that was above and beyond what the law requires us to do. But we sent something out just so that we could have a starting point for discussion. the biggest thing that I can say, and I'll keep this summarized for this point, and if anybody has any questions, we can go through a little bit more detail. But the essential thing is that draft budget that was sent out, the way it was built is it took last year's or this year's expenses and inflated them by whatever appropriate increase that you would think, 5% for certain things, 3% for certain things, and then added on what we expected for 2016. And when you put all that stuff together and divided it up by the number of units, we came up with 515. As you mentioned, Kerensky started off with asking some questions. I had some questions, and that led to Jim putting all of the expenses in a spreadsheet. What he did was he categorized those into recurring expenses and non-recurring expenses. For the recurring expenses, we took a closer look at what we thought the expected increase or decrease or stay the same would be for those line items. For the non-recurring things, we stepped back and said, okay, what is the risk of this thing being a recurring item for 2016? If it was, then we took our best estimate of what we thought it would be. But for the most part, and I'll step back for just a second, the biggest thing that impacted the 2015 numbers that ended up in that first draft is we were including the effect of a lot of the construction defect work and some other really major non-recurring things. So when you take the effect of those things out and really focus in on the actual expenses for recurring items and then add on the stuff that we know that is going to occur in 2016, that's how we get from where we were, 515, down to where we are right now at 468. I like to say this anytime we talk about budgeting, that it's not there's no such thing as a crystal ball. You can budget for worst case scenario, in which case you're going to end up with a whole lot of money at the end of the year. You can budget for best case scenario, which usually means you're going to be scrambling and squeezing at the end of the year. Or you can do what we tried to do here, which is to really take a look at reality and experience and come up with the best estimate for what we think things are going to look like at the end of 2016. Some things are going to come under budget, some things are going to go over budget, but when taken as a whole, we really think like this is the best answer to get us the money that we need to fully fund operations and our reserves. And that number that we're at right now is $486. I would be glad to open it up at this point if anybody's got any questions. Specifics will be a little bit more difficult to deal with, but in general, if people have questions about how we looked at certain things, be glad to answer them.
All right, this is Bob Ashburn. Could you have a general idea of how much of that goes in reserve?
Oh, that number is set by the whatever we put out there is 137,710.
And what's in there now?
What is in the total reserves?
Yeah.
Ooh, God, Jim, do you have a number for what's in the account? I don't have my balance sheet in front of me.
313. I haven't transferred the last 6 months of 2015, so that's going to transfer another. It would be $68,000, but remember we just approved $8,000 and some change to resurface the pool, so it's going to be about another $60,000. So we should end up the year $380,000. Now I can tell you
Total reserves.
Let's see. It was projected to be. Hang on a second. It was projected to be $385,000. So subtract 65, be $325,000.
Yep, that. I just pulled it up. That's the number that I was shooting for, also.
Is that in line with what you think we ought to have, Jim?
Well, hang on a second. That's a loaded question.
Yeah. No, I think we ought to have $600,000. I mean, if I was thinking, because no, you got to understand that number is a result of a number of reserve studies starting all the way back to day one when the developer was putting $40,000 a year, and that schedule stayed there until 2009 or 10. I'm not sure exactly.
I think it was 10, and then we adopted in 11, right?
40,000 to 80,000. We had a reserve study done that year, which would have affected 2011. The board rejected at that time, not this board, a different board, rejected that. That was the Fosseloff board, rejected that number, said, nope, I don't believe that reserve study. In 2012, this board finally adopted that study based in and they ruled some things in and some things out. Anyhow, it was increased from 80,000 to the present reserve schedule of 137,710. Now, in 2013, that first year that went into effect, the owners didn't want to fund the full 137,000. They wanted to fund it at 50%. So it was only funded at 68,000 that year. Then in 2014, we used that money to offset the cost overruns on the construction defects. And then the first half of 2015, we still were paying some of those construction defects, and we used another 50% of that money. So that amount, 137,710, has never, in effect, been fully funded if you take in the net effect of what we put in and what we take out. I never put it in 2015 or 2014, took it back out. I just took the net, which was zero. Same way in 2015, this current year. I never put in, I took the net, which would be half, 68,000. I still haven't funded that. The money's in the operating account. It's there. I just haven't transferred. I'm going to transfer it this month, but I'm going to take out the replastering the pools, which was $8,550. So it's going to be $68,855 less $8,855 is what's going to go in at 2015. That will leave us around, well, let's just take 10 off of that. It's 385. So if I take that, around 375 roughly at the end of the year. I said 320. It'd be about 375 at the end of 2015. Now, your question was, is that adequate? No, because that reserve study said, let's just look at building painting. That reserve study said to paint the building was $293,000, and we know it's around $500,000. The original reserve developer said it was $40,000 to paint the building. It's been working from a deficit from day one. That's how I'm giving you a history of how we got to where we are today. Now, where we are today is where we are today, and the main thing it's going to affect in the immediate future is the building paint, which this is what the Building and Paint Committee is going to struggle with. Is we know there's a deficit. We know we want to paint the building in 2016. That's the target. It might slip to 2017, but the target is this next upcoming calendar year. And they know that they got a deficit. They know that they're not going to have $500,000 in reserve. And so they're going to have to look at different options to recommend to the board and the owners of how we're going to pay for that painting. The rest of the reserve items, your roofing and your pools and all that, yeah, I think all those are adequate for the most part, to be honest with you. Some of them might be overfunded. Again, in 2016, in this budget, you'll see there's money to do a new reserve study. You're supposed to update it every 5 years. It should have been done in 2015. We slipped, but we're going to do it in 2016. So we'll start a whole new, a refreshed reserve schedule that will be put up to the owners, because I'm sure it's going to change, to adopt starting in 2017. So our most immediate problem reserve is we're going to come up short on funding for painting. And we're going to have to address that. Now, this budget doesn't address that at all. There's no money in here other than some initial seed money to hire an architect or an engineer to help with renderings and color selections and writing a spec and all that. Because the board, it's in this budget so that if the board and the committee, if the committee recommends it and the board wants to do that, there's money to do that. If we didn't put it in there, then it wouldn't matter if that was a recommendation because there was no money allocated for it. So this budget does allocate, I want to say it's $11,000. Yeah, $11,000 for that purpose, to get the ball rolling. Now, I don't know if that answered your question or not, Bob. That was a whole lot of explanation for a simple question, I guess.
It does, but it sounds like even though we're not where we ought to be, we're making a good effort to get back on track.
Yes.
Yeah, Bob, if I can add this in, when we were first putting the budget, the reserve schedule spreadsheet together, that was one of the biggest issues that we faced, and that was we knew back then that the rate that we were adding to reserves was not going to be adequate to paint the building at some point. But the question at that point was, do we just raise the dues so much and get ourselves caught up, or do we try to do it in some incremental fashion that gets us close to where we need to be without asking the owners to really dig down deep and really hurting people?
That sounds good.
Myself included.
Brian, this is Randy. Are the reserves? Is it a pool funding?
No, we're still line itemed right now. If I'm remembering right, to go to pool, we have to have an owner vote.
Okay,
that's correct.
Thank you.
And going pool would be the better way to go because like Jim said, we've got some things that are probably over reserved right now. That's not to say that there's probably some way that we can move some stuff around, but it just makes everything so much more difficult when you've got things in line items and you essentially trap money. It's kind of like companies like ours that have businesses overseas. You end up with trapped cash in places where you don't need it.
Well, I'll give you one example of that where we're overfunded. This is my opinion. If you look at the present reserve schedule, which I know you don't have in front of you, at the end of 2016, as part of that funding, we will have in walkway and railings roughly $100,000, $99,836. We just completed the walkways and railings. That was part of the beaches construction. So that's money that isn't going to be used for walkway and railings. It's just going to sit there and linger. It's not going to get used unless we move it or pull it or do something. So there's $100,000 roughly that you could take and move up to painting, which at painting at the end of the year we'll have 216, let's just call it 217,000. Well, we could add right there, we could add 100,000 if we pull or if the board decides to just change the schedule. But if to change it, any changes to the schedule has to have owner approval. Whether you pull it, change the funding formula, anything you change on there has to have owner approval other than fully funding the schedule that's in place. That's the only thing the board can do. Any other changes require owner approval. So I just throw that as an example of why I say some line items in the reserve are, in my opinion, that's overfunded. That's dead money. That's $100,000 sitting there that's not going to be needed for a number of years. We just did it in 2014 and 15. We just completed all that. Part of it was done beaches construction. Part of it was done in-house by the employees. Did your front balconies. They sealed and painted those, and then beaches repainted and reconditioned all the railings in the entire building. All of that's done.
Skywalk.
Yeah, Skywalk's another one. Of course, that's a smaller one. Let's see, what's in Skywalk? Let's see, Skywalk, pedestrian bridge. We got, not a whole lot. We got $7,000 sitting there, but that's another one that could be zero because that was just as part of beaches construction. And also, your in-house people sealed and painted the floor of the Skywalk. That work's done.
So would now be a good time to put that out for a vote to go pool?
Yeah, this is what the Building and Paint Committee is going to look at. They're going to look at that, and they're going to wrestle with all this and get in detail of it, and then they're going to make a set of recommendations to the board, and then the board is going to act on those recommendations, which, yes, eventually we're going to have to put this out to an owner vote. So what I just said, that's probably going to happen. We're probably going to, especially the $100,000 sitting there, there's no sense of leaving that set on walkways and railings when that's done. That's just dead money sitting there. So move it. But we'll have to get owner approval. But we got to get owner approval to change the color and all that. So we'll do all that at the same time. And how to fund the difference. That will be one vote, one special owners meeting sometime in 2015. 16. And that's what your Building and Paint Committee right now, that's partially what they're tasked with. That's a big part of what they're tasked with. Not to make that decision, but to make recommendations and come up with, their number one recommendation, number two, number three, if there is such a thing, to the board. And then the board will select one or all of those, and then we will put it out to the owners at that time for a vote. So when we say there's only $200,000 in painting, there's probably really over $300,000 for painting in this present reserve fund. It's not as dire as it initially appears, and sometimes we make it sound, in my opinion. Now, again, everything I'm saying here is my opinion. The board can agree, disagree, owners can agree or disagree. I'm speaking just from me as a manager sitting here. That's all I'm speaking of. I'm not speaking for the board. I'm not speaking for owners. I'm speaking Jim Rossi as your manager, who's pretty familiar with these numbers. So, all right.
Any other questions?
Any directors? Everybody's done? Very good. There being no further business. Go ahead.
I have one question. When do we vote to go ahead and approve this so we can get this monkey off our back?
The 16th, right? Is that the...
Yeah. 16th, which is next Wednesday, is the date to adopt the budget.
Now, this is still a call-in thing, too, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Owners could
call?
Yes.
Yeah,
owners call into, they're welcome to call into all board meetings except closed meetings, which are, with your attorney and, where we're discussing litigation or if we're discussing personnel items, those are closed meetings. But otherwise, no, yes, all board meetings and committee meetings, by the way, the building and paint committees are also open to all owners. So, and honestly, we would like owner participation because that eliminates a whole lot of angst among the owners. Because when they see things like, $515 increase, that's the first thing they hear and see of it. And they go, oh, my God, where'd this come from? So we really, and unfortunately, we only got 2 owners participating today. I was hoping we'd have a lot more, but we like owners. And again, this is me speaking as a manager. I think it's better to have owner participation in these meetings because many questions, and you see the process, and you'll come to the same conclusion that the committee members, board members do, because you're part of it at that point, rather than just seeing, because sometimes when you just see the end result, it's shocking. Even me, when I first put that first budget together, when I saw 515, I went, I shrieked, back and looked at all my numbers again and go, well, that's what it is,
Hey, Brian, this is, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and even at the 486, I'd like to see it stay at 448. Heck, I'd like to see it decrease. You remember, we did decrease from 460 2000 and let's see, what year did that decrease? I think 2000 and 2013. 2012, your assessment was 465. It went down from 465 to 448, back to 486. So if you look at the increase over a period rather than just last year compared to this year, last year compared to this year is 8% increase. Look at it over the last 4 years, it's only a 4% increase over 4 years. You're talking 1% a month, all it is. I would say it's pretty. That's acceptable when it's in those terms. Again, the thing I'm saying is just me, Jim Rossi, speaking. Okay, I'm not trying to decisions. I'm not trying to influence any decisions. I'm not trying to speak for the board. I'm not trying to speak for owners. This is just me giving you my opinion and the fact that I'm probably the most familiar of anyone on this call with these numbers because I'm the guy that pays the bills every day and I'm the guy that collects all the assessments every day.
Hey, Randy.
Y'all have an idea of what time of the day? I'm going to be traveling on next Wednesday.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock Central
Okay.
Time, Bob.
4 o'clock Central, right?
That works
Yes.
for me. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Who is it?
This is Chris Arnold, 2306.
Leonard?
Chris.
Oh,
Arnold.
Chris Arnold. Okay. All right, he's here. Go ahead, Chris.
Jim, on the spreadsheet you sent out that measures 2016 proposed against 2015, it's broke out into different sections. And if I'm doing my math right, I can see that in administrative, we go from 18,000 to 28,000. So I was wondering if there was just a couple of things I had questions on. The office equipment and supplies, was there a reason, and should I be going against the 2015 budget or 2015 projected? What's the difference between those two?
2015 budget was what we had originally budgeted for that. The 2015 projected is based on actual expenses. So the smarter thing to do would be to go against the 2015 projected number.
And the projected were projected September when I originally that was from when I originally put this together in September. You got to remember, I didn't start on this last week. I started on this in August and put out the first September, October. So I had to use basically 6 months of data and project the rest of it.
No worries. So on line 28,
projected is to the actuals. Now, what we have done since then, because now we're in December, I took, like when Brian Riley started out and in his opening remark, I took expenses to date, and that was through December 7th, actual expenses. And on a spreadsheet, we then, myself and Brian Lunsford, and maybe some other board members, because they had this as well, but I know Brian Lunsford and I took every one of those numbers and examined them and determined whether it was recurring. If it was, it went to the budget. If it was not recurring, one-time expense, it didn't go on the budget. So I don't even really like to look at 2015 and 2000 projected and 2000 and budgeted, because to me, they're meaningless. They really are. What I want to look at is what was actually spent, that spreadsheet, in 2015. That's the number I would really rather look at, because that's real, actual money, dollars spent. The rest of these, the budget is a guesstimate, it's a crystal ball, and the projection is, again, somewhat of a crystal ball. So those are erroneous. Those numbers can have a lot of error in them. That's why we took the time to do the actual expenses and put it on a spreadsheet, and Brian Lunsford and I looked at those individually. So those are the two documents I'd rather look at.
Okay.
Brian, you may have a different opinion.
Well, Jim, the one thing that I would add to this is that one of the biggest problems we have right now is going to be taken care of in 2016, and that is that our accounting system has been kind of a carryover from many years ago. We've got a lot of expense accounts, and it's really hard to line those things up and associate them with a budget line. And one of the things that I noticed when I went through here is that Jim, the spreadsheet that Jim started working with is different from the spreadsheet that I started working with, and there's I hate to say this, but there's a significant amount of mismatch between what was a budget line and what ended up being an actual line. In other words, they're in the wrong categories. So
right.
It's really, really difficult to deal with this right now. And the goal that we have for starting in 2016 is to really simplify and streamline our accounting structure such that we budget against expense account lines, and we can really quickly pull together a budget to actual and do that on a monthly or quarterly basis. It's just really a difficult task right now because we have so many expense accounts, and if one person organizes it one way and another person organizes it another way, and then you try to put the two together, it just really becomes a fiasco.
Yeah, it's just a discussion not even really worth having. Now, if you look at this 2016 budget, this Jim Rossi speaking again, we have $2,400 in there to hire our accountant, who is a CPA. Right now, I reconcile all the bank accounts. I'm not real comfortable with that. Okay? I think that needs to have another set of eyes. I'm the guy who's collecting the money. I'm the guy who's spending the money. And then I'm the guy who's reconciling on the bank account every month. I think you need another set of eyes as a check on me. I'm more comfortable with that, okay? And I think the board and the association will be more. So the plan here, and we put money in here, to hire the accountant, that he will do the bank reconciliations every month, a CPA, an accountant. And he will also will produce the monthly financial statements. So that will stop this miscoding, which means, in essence, what he does at the end of the year audit, he'll be doing every month. He's actually doing a ongoing audit all year long at that point. And then,
So, Jim,
then we can, and we got the website in here. Then we'll put those financials on the website, and every owner every month can go in there and look at those produced by a CPA who has done the reconciliation. He's done the journal entries to recode everything to the right line item expense, and they'll be a lot more meaningful. That's just to what Brian's already told you, that we're starting over with QuickBooks and a whole new chart of accounts and everything else. So going forward, I am confident that your budget will be much more meaningful, that it'll line up with your actual income statements. They should be one and the same. And we can list what was budgeted in that line item and show you the difference. Hey, are we under budget or over budget that line item?
so can I ask you a couple questions on the budget sense?
Yep.
So on line 28, we were looking at the 2640 versus 2,640 versus the 6,127. Was there extra office expenses we were expecting over what we had last year?
No, Chris, I would say that is a prime example of something that is there's about $3,700 worth of actual expense from 2015 that was coded to something else, and I was looking through it as Jim was talking, trying to figure out where it went, but it's moved from one category to another, which is what's explaining why that's going up so much.
Okay.
And I know that's not a very satisfying answer, but
no, I understand. On line 32, the professional attorney fees, we had $14,000 that we didn't expect.
That was based on a projection. Again, Chris, I really don't want to use those 2015 projections that you're looking at. You really need to look at the income statement. Those are actual numbers. And if you look out here, when you look across professional attorney fees, you see where it says $7,063. You see where it says for 2016? And then if you look at out to the side of it, it says that's line 83 and 91 from the income statement. That number, if you go back to the income statement, money actually spent, if you tie that back to the income statement, line 83, line 91, it'll total up to the $7,063. That's where you'll see where that number came from. So the numbers in the S column, the green column, the 2016, have really, when I developed this, I didn't even look at the two columns you're looking at anymore. I didn't even, in this last, never even looked at them. In fact, Brian Lunsford said, "Hey, I'm trying to get these." I said, "Brian, I don't even look at those. I went and looked at actual 2015 income line item expenses, and I indexed it so that you can trace it back to the income statement. And when you go to the income statement, it'll say line 32 on the budget. You go right back to the budget for every one of those. Everything is indexed, so you can go back and forth. Everything, you could actually perform a running trace where every single number in 2016 budget came from. Forget those first two columns. They're just going to confuse you.
Well,
in fact,
the thing that
only reason I've left them there is because they were in the original one we mailed out. That's the only reason they're there. Otherwise, I would have just taken them out altogether.
The thing I was trying to figure out as an owner is the extra amount we were spending. What sections where was that coming from? Was it the daily maintenance that we were doing year over year?
Give me a line item you got a question on.
So I had the question on the attorney's fees.
Okay.
And then as I was going down.
Let's take it one at a time. Attorney fees.
Okay.
Go to line 83 and 91 in the income statement. Pull up the income statement.
Right. I got it. Hold on. So I see 83 of 13,000.
Well, that's what we had. Yes, 13,000. But in 2016, you notice line 83 says we only projected we're going to use not 13,000. We're projecting we're going to use 6,000. And what that is from is us being able to contact the attorney for an opinion. I figured, once a month at $300 an hour, him attending the annual meeting, and probably 1 or 2 closed meetings a year if we have any litigation. So it's just a crystal ball guesstimate, that's $6,000. Could have used the full 13,000 if I wanted to base on what we did in 2013. But 2013, we had the litigation about, the rules were being challenged in court and all that, and we had some foreclosure stuff we had to clean up. I see the attorney fees decreasing in 2016 from what they were in 2015. So decreasing from 13,000 to 6,000. It's a decrease.
Okay. But in 2015, we didn't have money budgeted for that, correct?
We had the example that I was saying about things being in a different place. If you go back onto the budget worksheet tab, there is a section that is specific to legal, and in that section we had budgeted $4,500. So we spent more than we had budgeted for, but to Jim's point, we budgeted I think $4,500. We actually ended up spending $13,000, but primarily that money went towards, as Jim was saying, the defense of our rules, and there's really no reason to think that we're going to have to go through all that stuff again.
Sure.
We also had an owner litigation situation that hopefully does not pop up again in 2016.
Sure. So is the correct place to be looking the treasurer's copy of the proposed budget worksheet 12/10/15, the actual worksheet that says budget worksheet 2016, just to sit back and see what we had budgeted for last year?
Look at the budget worksheet 2016, and in many cases you can look at a budget 2015 budget to 2016 proposed, but there are situations where we've got some things misaligned, and I could spend a few hours and try to clean that up, but I don't know that it would necessarily be very, very useful. Especially given the fact that we're going to spend so much time to get this thing cleaned up for 2016. I don't have the time to go through and try to trace all that stuff back through again.
No,
Chris, look
the
at
other question I had was,
look at the tab that says budget worksheet. Chris, concentrate on these 2 tabs on the treasurer's spreadsheet. The tab that says Budget Worksheet 2016. That shows you your 2016 budget. Then go over to the tab that says Detail. The Detail tab is the income statement expenses, actual, that I was talking about. That is that spreadsheet. You take those 2 documents and you can trace every number back and forth between the 2. Those are the 2 documents to look at.
No worries. The other question I had on line 50, I saw that we had 24 budgeted for MAPS and 0 this year. Was that just moved to a different place, or?
Line what now? 50, did you say?
On line 50, where we had 24 budgeted for MAPS last year, I guess we were cleaning those.
Yeah, they're in with maintenance supplies now.
Okay, so that makes sense. All right, so then if I sit back and I take a look at inspections, looks like cost.
Look at maintenance supplies. It says 0 budget in 2015, and 2016 we're saying $17,158. The MAPs are in that number as part of that number, along with several other things.
That answers that question. So bear with me 1 second. And then so the insurance actually runs about the same.
Insurance number, other than the workman's comp, which we pay separate. The main policies, which is property, wind and flood, general liability, directors and officers, crime, and equipment breakdown. That number, $70,684. I went to our agent, Accentria, and said, what number should I plug in for 2016? Because it actually renews in 2016 in March of 2016, our insurance renews. So he gave me that $3,684. You see on workman's comp, line 76, $777. I just paid the workman's comp. It just renewed this month. I just paid that for 2000. So that's a real number. The other one, which I'm very comfortable with, is the one that our agent said. That's the number you want to plug in.
Okay.
So that's
on line 110, the thing that I did have a question about for maintenance, it looks like our total maintenance went up $32,000, but actually didn't, because if you look at the 184 I guess you guys spent last year, it looks like we spent about $32,000 more than we thought we did. Was it a real $32,000, or did that come from other sections in the budget?
I don't know. You lost me in some of that explanation there.
All right. Where you? Line 110. So
right.
110T is $155,000, but 110Q is $184,000. So I'm guessing the 184 is what we actually.
I'm not
with you. Where you? T. It's the column is this.
Jim. Let me go on this one for a second.
Right.
So you're going from the budget of 155 in 2015 to 187 in 2016. Is that correct?
Yes, but I also see that he had 184,000 in column Q, so it looks like 184 was budgeted to be spent last year.
No, that's another one of those examples that Jim's been talking. Just really, for the sake of everybody's sanity, just please ignore column Q. It doesn't actually. That is not an actual summation of the actual expenses for those items. It really should be taken out.
Yeah, the only reason we left it there is because that's when I started working on those back in September, I started working with that column. That column isn't even being used anymore for all practical purposes. I mean, like I said, I didn't even look at it when I from your meeting on December 1st until today, I've never looked at column Q ever. Meaningless to me. And as far as I'm concerned, it's column P. The only thing that matters is the detailed worksheet, which is actual expenses, whether it was recurring or not recurring. If it was recurring, it transferred to the budget. If it wasn't, it didn't transfer. Those are the only two documents that really we need to be talking about, because that's what's determined column S, your 2016 budget. That's what's determining it. Q and P have no effect whatsoever. None. Zero. Zip. You could take them and eliminate them.
The thing that I'm trying to figure out, and maybe I'm just doing it with the wrong worksheet, is according to this worksheet on line 110, it looks like we're spending $32,000 more than we budgeted for last year. And if there's some other worksheet where I should be doing that math, I'm happy to go to that worksheet. But that's the thing I was trying to figure out. What were we doing different in maintenance?
You will drive yourself nutty trying to reconcile that in your mind.
There's got to be some way.
Just told you.
Chris, let me offer this up. Let me take a crack at doing something like that, and I'll give you a call, just the two of us, and we can work through that.
Because at the end of the day, I believe what some owners would be looking for, including myself, is there's a general number that we're using to sit back and maintain the building. And I think Jim already knows I've been very happy with how the building's been maintained. Overall, I think I've been pretty happy in my comments, and I think Jim and Doug know I love how the building is maintained. I love the changes that have been made. But when we're looking at a budget, there's X amount that we're budgeting per year to maintain that building. And there should be some way to measure it against the prior year. So we can say, okay, if we're looking to spend X amount more this year, is the X amount more for maintenance? Is it for repairs? Or is it extra going into reserves? Or where is that extra money going? And so the worksheet that I saw that seemed to make the most sense, but maybe it's not, I picked the budget worksheet 2016 and I went down each section. I said, where are we spending more money? And you can kind of break it out here, but maybe I'm looking in the wrong spot to see where we're spending more money. And those were the questions that I had. It looks like we're spending more money here, here, and here. And I was just curious as to why. And I think if you know where those sections are and then you have a reasonable explanation for it, I think you're likely to get a little bit less pushback from owners.
Chris, you would have to go back and reconstruct the 2015 projected numbers. We've moved some of this stuff around in different. That's why every single line on the 2016 budget. You see the notes out to the right where it says line and then it gives you a number? You see those notes?
Yeah, I do.
You got to go to the income statement, which is on the detail tab. Click on the detail tab. So if it tells you to go to line 23 of the income statement, you go to line 23, which says, in this case, audit, tax return, $6,500, and it's line 20 back on the budget. So if you go back to line 20 on the budget, bingo, the 2 line up. That's where all the numbers come from. Forget projected. Forget the budget. You can use the budget, and you can take this income statement, and you can total up everything on the income statement and say, gee, we budgeted, what's it say down here? I don't even know what the total is. We budgeted $713,000, but we spent $816,000. Whatever the number is, you'd have to go back and add up all those line items on that detail statement, because that was money actually spent, and it doesn't go all the way to the end of December 31st. It only goes through December 7th, but it's close enough. I've paid most of the recurring bills for December. I've already paid. It's close enough that anything that happens from the 7th to the 31st is not going to materially affect this budget, in my opinion.
But that's my question. So on line 184, we had a budget of 713. Did we actually spend 816,000?
Chris, we have not added up. I have not added up all these expense items. If you want to take and add up all the expense items on the detail page and see what that number is, then that's what we spent. I haven't done that. Do you see the tab that says detail?
Yes.
Click on that.
Okay.
You see that spreadsheet?
I do.
Got green lines and orange lines and yellow lines. The only thing that transferred to the budget was the recurring expenses, which are green lines. But if you want to take all of the expenses in column D and add all of those up, that is how much money we spent from January 1 to December 7th. Well, I have not done that. So if you're trying to compare what we budgeted and what we spent, add column D up. That's what we spent through December 7th. Now, it's going to be a little more at the end of the year, so if you get a statement at the end of the year and say, hey, it changed again, that's because you got to cut this off at a certain point. When I put it together, it was December 7th. Today's December the 11th. We still got 2 more weeks to go that I got to pay bills that are going to fall in December 2015.
I was just trying to find the best way to take a look at what we were proposing to spend for the next year and compare that to what we had budgeted for the prior year to try to see where the extra money was going.
You will have to total up column D. It's projected with whatever total you come up with in column D.
So column D, but only the green sections?
Well, no, all of them. Even the orange was money spent. But it's not a recurring. In other words, if you go down and you look at, where's an orange one? Okay, mechanical, electrical and mechanical. Line 122, 08. And it says there that we spent, wait, let me go back. That we spent $17,028 for that entire electrical mechanical. However, $11,625 of that is a one-time, non-recurring charge. That's when we lost the main bus bar. I don't expect that to happen again in 2016. It's only happened once in the 6 years I've been here, and that happened to be in 2015. I don't foresee that happening again. Now, is that to say it won't? But judgment, it isn't. So out of that number, okay, I took away 11,000. Didn't transfer it over. Understand? We spent 17. We spent 17,000, but 11,000 of that 17 was a one-time to repair that main bus bar. Remember Thanksgiving when everybody had no power?
I remember that. But
yeah, don't remind me.
That's
we're
when that
operating
was.
off of a budget. If we're operating off of a budget, there should be a way to look at the prior year's budget that we were operating off of and see what we're what we're looking to spend extra this year.
The budget category line items and what stuff actually got coded to, it can't do that. Brian called me yesterday and he goes, "Hey, you got something screwy here. In plumbing, you got the security stuck in there, $1,000. You want to know why? Because plumbing was Rob Powers. He's coded plumbing, and just the way QuickBooks is, it automatically codes it. So unless I override it and made it security, just an error, it got sent to plumbing. But it wasn't a plumbing expense. He also did security for us part-time during spring break. $1,010 was security money, not plumbing. So when I say that we've looked at all these expense items with great scrutiny, I honestly mean great scrutiny, pulled that out and put it where it needs to be in the 2016 budget. It should have been in security.
I'm not suggesting you haven't spent a ton of time on this. What I am suggesting is there should be some accurate way to look at this to see where we're spending the extra money on 2015 versus 2016.
If you want to spend the time, you can do it. It isn't going to change any of these numbers. If you want to spend that time, then you take column D and you go down through line by line and add all these up and look at the notes and see what transferred over and see what was one times means non-recurring. Green means recurring. Yellow is a check. It's just a check to make example. Line 61, line 75 is just a check to make sure everything totals on line 75, what we're showing in 61, which was 15,475.
But when we had a surplus last year of 30,000, and was that correct that we had a surplus last year of 30,000?
I spent a week of my time doing this. If you want to spend a week of your time doing it, you can certainly do it.
Understood. So last year, did we have a surplus of 30,000 that we moved over to this year from 2015 to 2016?
No idea. I have no idea. I'd have to go back and look at last year.
Okay, because I thought there was a vote at some point, and I saw there was 30,000 moved over.
I don't know what the amount was. I don't even know I can't tell you what the amount's going to be in 2015 until December 31st. Got to wait till we get there. We're not there yet.
But that was all based off of the 2015 budget, correct?
I still got 20 days of bills to pay.
Understood.
31st. I can't tell you until January 1 how much money's going to transfer over. Can't tell you that number. I have to guess at it. I guessed $30,000. And I guess conservatively. It's probably going to be more like 40, but I got to be conservative.
Okay.
If I'm not conservative, and it turned out to be 20, well then we're going to come up short on the budget.
Here's my point.
It's not an exact science. It's got a lot of guesstimate in it.
I'm not suggesting it is, but here's what I am suggesting. We are measuring that against the budget that was approved for 2015, whatever that number turns out to be. But
you are.
Number
we're not. I'm not.
Okay.
You are.
But there was a budget that came to $713,624, correct? That was the approved budget.
And what I'm telling you is that number is meaningless. It's
That's
meaningless.
The number approved and budgeted against.
The only meaning it has is whatever meaning you want to attach to it. But I'm telling you to come up with your total expenses. Projected expenses for 2016, that number is meaningless other than that as the guide to see how much difference there was, but it's really meaningless. That's not how this structured. I didn't look at what we budgeted in 2015. When you sit down to do a budget, somebody said, and I think it was Bob Ashburn, you do zero-based budgeting. We assume that every line item on 2016, no matter what it said in 2015, is zero. Zero. And let's add up what our actual expenses are. And that's what the number is. We don't care what it was in 2015 budget. We care less. We're starting with zero.
But there was a budget approved of $713,624, correct?
Yep.
And at the end of the year, we're either going to be over or under that, correct?
Yeah, and why do you care?
Well, because if let's say we just meet it, this year's budget is higher by almost $100,000, and it would be nice to know where we're planning on spending the extra money. And the best way I could figure out to do that was to look at what was approved and what we're measuring against for the prior year against what we're looking at for this year.
Brian Lunsford, help me out here. What I'm telling you is that's not how this budget was developed, and that's not, and I told you that we assumed that every line item was zero. And we looked at what we actually spent in 2015 and determined what that number should be for 2016. We looked at every item with zero. It didn't have any amount in it. Zero. Zero.
Understood.
We could
but
care
if that
less.
was the case, we should have a deficit of $100,000 this year. We should have $100,000 less because we should be over budget by roughly $100,000.
That's the way you want to look at it? Go ahead.
That's
not the way I look at it. Go ahead. That's the way you want to look at it. Go ahead. It's your math. It's not my math. It's not the math I used to come up with this budget, and I think Brian will tell you it's not the math he used to come up with this budget.
But this budget spends $100,000 more than last year's budget.
Which budget? 2016?
When we take a look at the 2016 proposed budget, and we measure it against the 2015 budget, there's $100,000 more in expenses.
Okay, and your point is what?
Jim, we discussed, might have been before you got on the phone, we talked about how much additional money is going in reserve.
There's no additional money going into reserves.
Well, that's
what?
not correct.
All I can tell you is you don't want to seem to listen to what I'm telling you how this budget was determined. You want to determine it your own method. You got a different methodology. Go ahead. Determine it with your methodology. We determined this, assumed every line item had a zero number, and then looked at actual costs and added them back in. We don't care what 15 said. Don't care. Now,
Jim, I'm fine with
only care in that you want to compare it with 2015. Go, how much more is it? It's 100,000 more. Okay, when you first do that and you see 100,000 more, you go, damn, did we make a mistake? So I went through I bet you I went through these numbers 4 or 5 times. And Brian Lunsford, how many times did you go through them?
Probably at least that many.
Okay, so between the two of us, we've looked at these 10 times. And if you want to look at them the 9th time, go ahead. I'm telling you what our methodology was, and you want to argue with it and come up with Chris Arnold's methodology. Fine, go ahead,
I'm not
Chris.
arguing with it.
This is Randy Carlisle, and I agree with Chris's idea too. I like to see the difference between the 2 years. I like that idea. I think that's the way to do it.
Okay, so you're telling me that assume that it's zero what do you find at fault with the methodology we used?
No, I'm just saying I like to see the comparison between 15 and 16, or 16 and 17, or whatever, where you know what the difference is.
Wrong with the methodology that we employed. Why is it not good? Why is yours better?
I didn't say it's better. I just said I like to see that on paper. I like to see the difference.
Then go for it. Do it.
This is Brandon. I don't think there's anything wrong with the methodology. I think where the questioning comes in is as long as once you use that methodology and you see the $100,000 difference, then you have to say, okay, what is the difference? And if the difference is legitimate, well, then you're right. It is what it is. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's definitely not the way that, I don't think a lot of us are used to it, which is why when I seen it, it did throw up some red flags. But then once I dug into it, the spreadsheets, it's awesome. And I don't know if I've got 2 questions. I don't know if Chris is done or if he wants to continue, but I've got 2 questions. Chris, are you good with me asking 2 questions?
I had the one thing I'd like to finish up on, but there's one thing I'd like to say ahead of time. I've always appreciated the job. I work with a lot of camps. I like how Ocean Villa is run. But every time a question is even asked, it really seems like you guys take this stuff personally, and we're not trying to do this to say we're upset in any way.
Let me clarify it right now. I'm not taking it personally. I tried to explain to you the method that I used and Brian Lunsford used and the board's looking at to develop your budget. You don't like it. You want to do something different.
It's not that I don't like it, Jim. It's not that I don't like it. It's that one of 2 things has to be true. Either we are $100,000 over budget from last year, which I don't believe we are, in which case $100,000 had to come out of some account because it was less than the amount.
But you are, because I can tell you where you're $100,000 over in your construction defects. We had a bid for $250,000, and the bill came out to $350,000. There's your $100,000. I can tell you that right now.
Forward to the following year.
That's right. We didn't move all that forward. If it was a non-recurring expense, we didn't move it forward. It got an orange line. It didn't get a green.
Right, but on the budget worksheet 2016, there's $100,000 extra being spent. Okay. And you're saying that's because that was based on what was spent in 2015 actual. And if that was the case, then we were $100,000 in the red because we brought in $100,000 less than we spent. And I don't believe that didn't happen.
I just told you it was. We took $137,000 out of the reserves. What do you mean? Yes, it was.
Okay, so we have $137,000 less than we did last year in reserves.
Yeah, we didn't fund anything in 2014. None, zero. Net effect was zero.
I'm not talking about the funding or reserves. I'm talking about the balance sheet at the end of the year, or at the end of November last year, as opposed to the end of November this year. We took money out of reserves from April. Okay.
In 2014, we used the entire $137,000 to pay for the cost overruns on the construction defect. Yes. And another $68,000, half of 2015, because it bled over in 2015. The bills were still being paid, bled over into 2015. Yes. That is what I'm telling you.
Well, if
you can believe it or not.
If we're not using full reserves, how do we pull the entire amount out?
Look, that detail page that you got are actual expenses. It's not made up. It's not projected. It's dollars that I wrote a check for. That's what was spent. If you want to know what was spent, like I told you, total up those columns. I didn't do that. I don't know what the number is. You keep asking me what is it. I don't know. Total it up. Maybe it is $100,000 more. Maybe it's closer to the 813. I don't know. And I don't see how it's germane to the whole discussion, other than you're trying to 15 budget compared to 2016. See, it's $100,000 more. Where's the $100,000? If you want to go through and everything is noted. Every single expense is noted to the income statement. Every single one on that. Every single one of them. So
the total for that column is $591.
Whatever.
I mean, I don't know if that makes a difference, but I mean, I just told it it's $591.
I guess the thing that I wasn't aware of.
Look, you got your way of how you want to evaluate this. I'm not going to rework it for your way. I worked it the way that will actually work for 2016. I'm open to suggestions if you find fault in the methodology. We did zero-based budgeting. That's what we started. We assumed that every line item had zero budgeted for it. What were our actual costs? We took our actual cost and added them in a dollar at a time. Dollar and dollar. Went down every line item and added them back in. If you can improve on that.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, no.
This is Brian O'Reilly. Can I interject for 1 second?
Please.
Hey, Chris, I just wanted to comment on your comment about, like people take it personal. And please know that we appreciate your input. I've been working, and most of the guys, especially Lunsford, Randy, the guys on this call have been working with Jim, for 6 years now or whatever it is. And part of what may come out every once in a while is we get some people who, no matter what is done at Ocean Villa, they poo-poo it, they argue about it, and it gets frustrating. I can tell you from everybody's perspective, and that may come out every once in a while in a response or a call. And I don't mean you may be paying a little price for some of those actions for all these years. That's kind of my statement.
Not a problem. Before I surrender my time, the one thing I am going to ask for is at some point for 2014, I would like an end-of-month statement for all accounts, whether it be September, October, or November 30th or the 1st or whatever that works. And I'd like the same exact thing for the following year so I can see what we have the prior year versus the current so that I can simply understand, did we have 100,000 less or did we budget appropriately since we're not looking at it this way? And with that, I surrender my time.
You're welcome to come down and produce those documents from the software. Come on down to my office and produce them, but I'm not going to sit there and do that.
Okay, I'm flying back in Monday or Tuesday.
You're welcome to do it. I have spent all the time I'm going to spend on this budget, unless somebody can come up with a better idea. If you want to investigate it, however you want to investigate it, be my guest. Keep in mind that all those are audited.
I'm looking.
If you think you're going to didn't uncover, be my guest.
I'm not looking for the budget. I'm looking for the end-of-month statements to see how much cash we had on hand in all the accounts so I can simply see.
And that takes time.
We have
you live here in the building. Come on down, and I will turn the computer and open up the software for you, and you can go in there and produce them.
Not a problem.
Be my guest.
See you on Tuesday. Okay.
All right. Well, Tuesday I got a board meeting at Twin Palms for their budget, 11 o'clock. So
I'll
send
an email. I'll work around your schedule. Not a problem.
All right.
I think somebody else had a couple questions.
Yeah, this is Randy.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Randy.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I do not have the stuff pulled up on my computer. I don't have real good computer stuff up here, so I'm going strictly off of what was mailed out. On the contract side, where it says security 25,920, and then the maintenance employees 158,510. Is our employees going to be doing the security this year, and that's just the extra pay for that, or we have other security coming in?
That is a correct statement. Our maintenance people double up the security during spring break and summer. That money you see, contract security, is additional to augment what our in-house people do. That is correct.
Okay. And the other question I had, and maybe it's on the spreadsheet you sent out, and I just don't have access to them, on the capital improvements. You show a total figure of $26,000. What all capital improvements are we looking at?
I think that changed on the one Brian did, didn't it, Brian?
No, it stayed. Let me get down to that line.
Yeah, I'm looking.
It actually changed to 29,280. It consists of the money that we are budgeting for the building and paint, architecture and engineering contract that we're going to have to execute in 2016 for architectural renderings, drawings, all of that kind of stuff, plus oversight on the project itself. And also, it is a placeholder for patio and deck furniture replacements.
And also the website.
And also the website that we're going to be putting in. So it's got a little bit of extra in there just because we we always seem to find something, a grill that needs to be replaced, pool deck chairs that need to be replaced, umbrellas, stands, all that type of stuff that is going to have to be replaced.
Yeah, steam generator goes down. Got no idea that's going to happen.
I was just wondering if we had some capital improvements that we were really spending
we really shouldn't
most
call
of
it
the money
capital.
on.
In fact, we changed it from capital improvements to one-time expenses because capital improvement sounds like, okay, what are we going to build in 2016? It's going to be a capital improvement.
Okay.
Part of the problem
you said something.
Brian was.
You said something about the website. I see that over there in administrative as a $4,000 expense. Is that done away with?
He's looking at the original.
Yeah, he's looking at the original.
Yeah, I'm looking at the original. I'm sorry, I don't have access.
That's all you can look. Your hand.
Yeah, Randy, that got moved down into one-time expense.
Okay. All righty. That's really all the questions I really have. I mean, I hate the dues are going up, but things happen. We gotta pay the bills.
No, I look at it like this: we actually cut them $30. We originally told you it was going to be $5.15. Now it's $4.86. So we really cut your dues $30. That's how a Democrat would look at it.
Well,
that's an accountant looking at it.
let me just tell you, Brian. You said I know you just transposed. No, one time you said 468, and one time you said 486. But 486 is the correct, right?
Yeah, 46 is correct.
Okay.
I'm just trying to rattle O'Reilly's chain here a little bit.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Brandon. One of my questions was just answered. The on the security, since we're doing it in-house, because I didn't know if we was hiring contractors this year, if we was doing it in-house, but since we're doing it in-house, and I'm assuming the answer to this would be yes, but if say we have a tame spring break and we don't need the extra security, I guess that could be cut on an as-needed basis, since it's in-house?
Absolutely. Now, it's a combination of in hiring outside security to augment that.
Yeah, this is Doug Counts. I'm going to jump in here. One of the ways we could really get the security that we need, we might throw this out there for any OV owner who appreciates all the efforts of me and Lamar working 90 hours a week and only getting paid for, what we get paid for, is owners who reside here. Chris, you, Brandon, to have a volunteer stand at post. You guys are welcome to do that. Maybe we'll save some money.
Do we get guns?
Yeah, that's a great offer, but no, thank you. Not going to happen there. I don't know if we shouldn't outsource it just for liability reasons, but that's a whole other subject. The other thing, and I know I sent an email. I know it's probably the hottest topic of everything, and I know it's probably not going to change, but I just want to throw it out there anyways. The main thing that I see from looking at this from 2013 or 2013 was the latest, all the way forward, is every year. I mean, from 2014 to 2016, there's a 35% increase in the maintenance, employees line. And of course, I don't know that that me saying anything is going to change it. I don't know that it should change. I feel like we may be heavy on headcount, but I just think that's something that really needs to be looked into, because that is the one line that year over year has pretty much the largest increase going across the board. And my only question would be, at what point does that increase stop being so substantial? I mean, I can understand a 3 to 5% because you're going to give cost of living increases, and there's going to be some payroll cost increases, but that line has had quite a bit of increase over the past 3 years.
Hey, Brandon, this is Doug Counts. I'll jump in here, being that that's kind of in my domain. Before you even brought it up with your emails directly to me or Jim, or saying that when you're, you in your world that we were at least one heavy, we were using. We extended the security. We only really need, and we feel it during the season, say March 1 through the middle of October or the end of September, whatever you want to call it. Because, we still have Bike Week and the Ironman, that go on, and you probably need somebody on the building at night. Elevators could go down, they help, whatever. And so what we did with Tyler Roper, who worked 7 nights a week for security, and, he worked from March 1 through October Well, one year we hated just to, lay him off because he might not come back. So we said, all right, why don't we keep him working 7 days a week at night, and average about 32, 33 hours a week at $10 an hour. Actually, we raised him up to 11. And basically what ended up happening during the winter hours, we turned him into a security/maintenance guy. You made a couple email comments that, you see or Chris Arnold did, you see our security guys at night, they're working. They're mopping and whatever. Well, what we thought was, look, and we actually turned it to be two guys. It got to be too much 7 days a week for Tyler, and so we brought in one of the guys we used on the side for security, John Montine, who did a great job for us with security. So Tyler worked 5 nights a week, maintenance/security, and John Montine worked 2, and that kept John in the family. But I thought to myself, what were we really getting out of it? And so Jim and I told Tyler and John 2 weeks ago, we stopped that. So I costed that out, and actually from the time we stopped it through the end of the year, well, actually I projected it through March 1 when we're going to probably need to have somebody here security. That's how I saved about $7,400. I hear, Chris Arnold, you're trying to justify how we went total budget from increase for $100,000. And that's based on raising the assessments to $515. So if you do the math on actually we're raising the assessments now only actually to $486. So we're increasing total budget by approximately $55,000 and not the $100,000 you're trying to look for. If somebody do the math at 125 owners times, the difference between 515 and 486 equals X times 12 months, and that'll spit those numbers out. I was doing it real quick. In addition to that, just so you know, Toby, Brandon, you know Toby, right? The maintenance building and grounds? Yeah, okay. Toby, I don't feel we were getting a value out of him to begin with. The guys concurred. Technically, in my mind, that was a $10 an hour job. I think that should really be a seasonal job, March 1 through October, in a perfect world, money-wise. He happens to know Rodney and Boyd, so we tried to make him, we made him in a year-round. But Toby didn't do what I wanted to do. I was not happy with him, so I let him go yesterday. So we're obviously going to be saving some money. He was the fourth building and grounds guy that was approved by the board. And I'll probably hire another hour guy beginning in March. Just so you know, as we speak, we have chopped off 2 full-time positions, basically.
But you just ended my concerns over head count with what you just said. just to let you know. So that was that was the weak link as far as not getting our money's worth.
Yeah, I mean, look, man. Again, as Brian O'Reilly, the president, said, and Randy, listen in on this. I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but I'm going to. It seems like all we get instead of, hey, buddy, y'all doing a great job. We really put a lot into this, but all we get is slapped. And so, yeah, when you guys, anybody comes in, we're a little jaded. It's like, oh, geez, is the person asking a question to get an answer, or are they putting something on that bitch blog Yahoo just to stir everybody up in the public arena and just, it gets to a point where, look, we're sorry if we take it personally. I happen to be like you, Brandon. I think, look, man, I did an evaluation. It's ironic I did it, not in reaction to your questions, but need to do it anyhow. What the hell's Tyler and John really doing at night? It's nice to have somebody here, but are we getting value of having a body here? Okay, what are we getting for it? And Toby, we got great guys. Lamar, we got Rodney, Boyd. They're an A team. Toby ain't an A team. It's hard to work in this program, and guess what? Because I make it hard on them. So I'll tell you, I'll be the first worst person. If I'm not getting value, they won't be here. And I don't mind working with you on some of your other ideas. I don't think we need to go, like you said, and make each employee have a job title, job description, whatever. And sometimes, in this business, you got to go with the flow. You might be on one project, and then you got a water heater exploding, and they're all ticking time bombs, and all these guys, including me and Jim, are running down the flood. So, I mean, that's kind of, screw with your daily checklist if that's what you're demanding we have. And I say, no, we're not going to. We did it first when we started the employees to get a base to see how long it took to do this and that. So we knew if people were making a 4-hour job into a 16-hour job or vice versa, you need to know how long it takes to clean the pool and all that. But when you get guys like Rodney and Boyd and Lamar, they don't have to be told what to do, and they don't make that 40-minute job into a 3-hour job. Now, Toby was doing it. Toby don't work here no more.
Yep. Yeah, and I agree 100%. The three you're naming, they are A-plus, top-notch guys. And I mean, Boyd gets there when I'm leaving in the morning, and I never see him he's nonstop, you know. But the one, my concern was Toby, and that honestly, that was the only one that made me question our head count, because I've been watching him for several months, and, you know, when I seen it come out, we have a percentage of increase. I'm not going to name a specific one on an email, but that was the one.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Brandon, you know, Toby gave me the impression, I pretty much let the guys bring him on board. Doug Counts didn't hire Toby. The guys did. And I probably should, you know, correct that. I went along with the flow. But Toby always gave me the impression that he really didn't want to be here. Well, it's really easy for me to make it where you're not here. And I did. And the next guy coming in, a seasonal guy, it's hard to hire a seasonal guy. You know from your friends in the bar business, you know, the ones that, you know, when we went through all that with spring break, you know, it's hard. It's hard to find somebody who can survive starting to work in March and then being laid off in October. The only model that works is they can have a job that lays them off routinely, and they can collect unemployment and do some side handiwork over the winter. A lot of people have perfected that art. But if we can find somebody who's willing to work March 1 through middle of October at $10 an hour, be the fourth guy, and all he is a step and fetch it guy for the other A-teamers. And if he don't step and fetch as fast as he needs to for those guys, I'll find out, and he won't be here anymore. So anyhow, I think your ideas on trimming the BMG was excellent. I just happened to kind of beat you to the punch a little bit, and I didn't have a chance to communicate that to you.
Fellas, I got a call in 4 minutes, so are we close to finishing up?
I'm good.
Any other questions, comments? I'll then close the meeting. The board meeting of December 11th, 2015 is adjourned at 3:56 Eastern. Again, I'll make the statement, Chris, everybody that's on, Brandon, Randy, we do appreciate you guys getting involved and wanting to people who care about Ocean Villa. We have lots of people that do, but they very seldom speak up. And to Doug's point, if people do, it's in the past it's been accusatory, you know, and that's why I'm glad you guys have a sincere interest in and appreciate what's going on at Ocean Villa. With that, everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you on the 16th, right?
That's right. We'll see you guys. Thanks for participating.
Thank you.
All right. See you. All right.